Well, hello there to anybody who's watching this video. Today am gonna show you how to disassemble and reassemble. This is a Chiappa clone of the Winchester model 1886. This is a new rifle and about a year old, and I've put around 150 rounds through it. But the reason I'm doing this video is because there are some videos out there showing a complete disassembly and reassembly of an 1886, but those videos the only ones I could find that showed disassembly and reassembly were the Morocco production of the 1886, and the internal components on those are a little bit different. Those Moroccos have a tang safety, and I think there's a hammer rebound spring in there that doesn't exist on this rifle. So this Chiappa version is, as far as I can tell, at least the internal components of the receiver is true to the original Browning design of the model 1886. As we take this apart, if you want to look at an exploded view diagram of the original 1886, you'll see that these parts are identical. And so I did find a couple of videos out there with the disassembly of the original 1886, which was quite helpful, but those videos didn't show a reassembly. I am not a very mechanically inclined person, so I got through the disassembly just fine. The reassembly, though, there's a couple tricks, and it took me a while to really get comfortable with putting this thing back together again to make sure that I was doing it correctly. So I probably had to take it apart and put it back together again about 10 times before I started feeling comfortable about it. And so I wanted to do a video for anybody out there who's also not as mechanically inclined, but who wants to know how this rifle works and how to put it back together again. So here we go. First thing we always want to do before we start working on any firearm, obviously, is make sure that it's clear, that the action's clear, there's no ammunition inside of it. So I don't know how well you can see this, but I'll do the best I can. This is a long rifle and I don't have much space, but you can see that the receiver's clear. There's no round in the chamber. And so I think we're good to go. So I'm gonna close the action. I'm in the habit of anytime I have the hammer back on this thing, unless I'm getting ready to fire it, I just release tension down to the half cock notch. If you go all the way home, you can just pull it back. There's a notch on here on this hammer that I'll show you here in a little while, and that's your safety right there, aside from your trigger finger. Okay, so some of the tools I'm going to use here, I've got a rubber mallet, I've got a standard mallet, got a pair of vice grips that's going to come in handy here in a few minutes. Got an armorer's block that's always handy. Flathead screwdriver. I've got a pick that you might need. Pair of needle nose pliers is always handy to have around. And then I've got some punches. Now, you always want to try to use a brass punch on any of the external components so you don't ding them up. And then you can also use these on internal components. This is the only brass punch I have. So I've got some steel punches here. You want to be careful with steel because it'll mar up the finish. It'll really ding it up. So if you're going to use steel, like if I had some smaller brass punches, I'd be using those, but I don't. So, and I'm only using these on the internal components. It's just, you know, it'll ding up the finish on it. It's not going to damage the part, I don't think. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take out some screws. The first screw we're going to take out is going to be this rear upper tang screw, okay? And so this may look a little bit different than your rifle. This is a sight base for a vernier tang sight. So this did not come with the rifle, obviously. This is just a flathead screw. As we pull this screw out, you'll see that it's probably, if you don't have a vernier sight base on here, it's a little bit longer than a traditional, the original screw that came on with this rifle. So, and it's been a little while, a few weeks since I pulled this apart, so I'm going to go slow, and hopefully that'll be also helpful to you all. So here's the rear upper tang screw. I'll just set that aside. The lower tang screw, there's only one of them. Although it looks like that's empty, it's not. That's just where that upper screw, that's just the threaded portion where that upper screw goes into. So this lower tang screw, this is just a wood screw. And the reason we're taking these out is, we're going to have to take the stock off to be able to access the components, the receiver components. So you can see that that's just a wood screw. Set that aside. Actually, I'm going to leave that open. No, I'm going to close it. Okay, so to get this stock off, if this is your first time, if it's a new rifle and it's your first time taking this off, you may have to put some elbow grease into it. Chiappa has made these parts pretty tight, so it's a pretty well-made rifle. I've had this on and off a few times, so it's not too difficult anymore. The videos I saw with the guys that had the original Winchesters, they just slid these things on and off. They've been on and off so long. I mean, those rifles are 140 years old at this point. Can be. Now, just some history on the rifle. Winchester purchased the patent for this 1886 from Browning in 1885, I believe. They started production in 1887. And then that production ran through the early 1900s. So there's quite a range of time that these originals were made. So if you have an original, you can go to the Winchester website. They have some interesting resources to be able to tell when your particular rifle was made. So to get the stock off, I'm just going to use this rubber mallet, and I'm going to tap it on this shoulder right here. And you should be able to see it starting to back out from where it meets up with the receiver right here. You can see how that's backing out already. And it doesn't take much now. And I'm just going to slide this thing out. And this is a walnut stock. It's a little heavier than pine. And it's a really nice stock. So I'm just going to set that aside so I don't scratch it. Okay. The next thing I do when I take this rifle apart, the very first thing I do after I get the stock off is to take this screw out. That screw right there, let me zoom in on it a little bit. This screw right here is the hammer spring tension screw. This is the hammer spring. It's a leaf spring. Oops, there we go. It's a leaf spring that runs along the lower tang, and it provides tension to the hammer to go home. Okay, and if you have this rifle out at the range and you're getting light fires on your primers, light strikes on your primers, there's a good chance that this tension screw right here needs to be tightened a little bit. Before you do anything else, taking it apart, anything else like that, just get a flathead screwdriver out and put about 1/8 or 1/4 of a turn on that thing and try firing again and see if that solves the problem. My guess is it probably will. The reason I'm taking this spring off first, or this screw out first, is because when we go to take that spring out, if the screw is still in, it can scratch the spring. And being a leaf spring, it's susceptible to scratches. And if it gets scratched, especially crossways across the spring, it can scratch the spring, which weakens the spring and can cause it to break. So that screws out, and you can see how small this screw is. There's a couple of screws on here that are going to be pretty tiny, so you want to make sure you hold on to these things. Put them in a parts bin or something like that. Just make sure that they don't fall on the floor and get away from you. So I still have the spring in. It's still got tension on the hammer, so I'm going to release that. I'm going to release it all the way home. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off, and this is just preference for me. I'm just going to take off this side gate cover. And I don't know if you can see that, but I've dinged this screw up pretty good by not placing enough downward pressure on the screwdriver. And so it has skipped and dinged up my screw. So you want to make sure and put plenty of downward pressure when you go to start taking it out and putting it back on again. And so here's that screw. You may need a pick the first couple times you do this to get in there and pull this off, but this is just popping out nowadays. And I just take the screw, I put it back into the cover, and I set it aside. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the hammer spring, this is also called the mainspring, out. So I'm going to take it out pushing from the right of the receiver as you look down the barrel. Anytime I say right or left, that's what I mean when I look down the barrel. From the right of the receiver to the left, and I'll show you why here in a second. So I'm going to grab my brass punch. Again, this is an internal component, but I don't want to scratch it. So I'm going to use a brass punch, and I'm just going to tap it from right to left, and it pops out. A couple things I want to point out to you. One is this kind of foot here that sticks out. This is a part of the hammer. This is attached to the hammer right here. And that goes into this stirrup on this spring. And we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a few minutes. But just to let you know that's there. The second thing I want to point out is this bevel on the back end or the bottom side of this, or the back end of this spring. And so that's why you're going to want to tap it out from right to left, and tap it back in from left to right because of this bevel right there. So we'll put that aside. Next thing we're going to take out are the blocks. And so these blocks, or when John Browning designed this, you know, the reason he designed this was because there was a need in the market for a stronger rifle and specifically a rifle that could handle the 45-70 government round. Most of the as far as I know, most of the rifles were, you know, like 44-40, 45 long Colt, and they were weaker rounds because the internal components of those rifles were a little bit weaker, and they couldn't get anything any stronger than that. So Browning designed this thing to really boost the strength of the receiver and the ability for the rifle to handle a larger round. So these blocks here are where the rifle gets its strength. So there's a block on either side. As you probably know from the top of the receiver, you can see those. And you can see that on the right side, this is your cartridge guide, and it fits inside of a notch inside that, or on the side of this block. And as we work the action, that cartridge guide stays in that notch. So the left cartridge guide is different from the right. It doesn't have a notch. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start from on the left side here, and you can see what looks like a flathead screw, but it's not. It's a split pin. And so to get that out, it's a split pin that's inside of a bushing. To get this out, we're going to get a punch, and I just got a steel punch. It hasn't dinged up. I mean, it's kind of marred the finish on the split pin a little bit, but it's covered anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. And when it comes out, you know, when you bring this thing out, it's not out for very long. I'm not too worried about it. But if you are worried about the finish on the split pin, then use a brass punch. So the first time, if you've got if you've got a new Chiappa rifle, or a new rifle that has this same setup, I think even the Morokus are probably the same, you may have to really wail on this. I had to end up using an actual hammer and a steel punch to get this thing out the first couple times. Since then, since I've gotten it out a couple times, it has gotten significantly easier. So I'm just using a regular mallet at this point. But you got to give it a good whack to get it started, and you can see how it started. Okay, and then we'll finish it out here. I'll put it inside a hole on my block. Okay. Now it's still kind of in. I'm just going to pull it out from the right side. There's that. And then I can flip this thing over and the bushing will just fall out. Okay. Now, a couple things to point out on these. Okay, so the split pin, the head of the split pin right here has a lip around it. And that goes on the left side of the receiver. That lip fits inside of this channel inside of the bushing. So this portion of the bushing is going to go on the left side of the receiver as well. So I'm just going to set those aside. Now, the left block is just going to slide out. There's nothing There are no notches on this side. You can tell the inside of the block because of this ledge right here. The outside does not have that ledge. So we're going to flip this thing back over again, and to get the right block out, I'm just going to push down on the cartridge guide, and the right block will come out, and you can see that notch right there. I'm going to set those aside. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to get out, and the last thing we're going to get out, is the, well, not the last thing. The next thing we're going to get out is the carrier, the finger lever carrier assembly. And so this is the finger lever, and it extends all the way up into the breech bolt body. The carrier is inside here, and I'm going to push this cartridge guide up, or at least see if I can. It's not wanting to go up, but I've got it in there kind of tight. It'll go up eventually. It's probably because of that. Yep, there we go. Okay, so as this finger lever works, you can see it pushes the cartridge guide down and then to go back in there. So to get the finger lever and carrier assembly out, I am going to try to get this thing open. I'm going to take this pin. This is actually a kind of a combination of a pin and screw. This screw, it's threaded right here. Maybe a 1/2 inch of this pin is threaded. To get this out, we just go to the left side of the receiver. And again, I've kind of dinged this screw up a little bit. You might be able to see, again, because I didn't put enough pressure on it when I was taking it out and putting it on the first few times. So I'm just going to unscrew this. And there is tension on this thing, and I'll show you the reason why here in just a second. So I've got this thing backed out off the threads, but it's still not, I'm not going to be able to pull it out. And the reason for that is because it is being held in place by the lower tang, the finger lever and carrier assembly, and the hammer. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just tap this thing out. And it doesn't take a lot. Even when I first started taking this apart, it didn't take a ton of force to tap this out, but it's in there. And what you'll find is I'm going to release, there's still a little tension on the hammer just because of this assembly that's in there. So I'm going to release that hammer all the way home. And probably what may happen is this hammer goes flying out when I punch this pin out. But you're going to be able to take the hammer out, the lower tang, and the carrier and finger lever assembly when we get this out. I'm just going to punch this thing out as far as I can, and then I should be able to just pull it off the back side. You can see how it's sticking out here on the left side. Once I pull it out, yep, there goes the hammer. So it's just a little tension on the hammer. This is the kind of the main pin of this receiver. This is what keeps everything together. So I'm going to set that aside. Here's the hammer, and obviously it goes in like this. This is the foot for that stirrup, and then you can see here this notch, these two notches right here. So this is I believe this is the half cock notch. Yep, that should be right. And then that's the full cock notch right there. You can see that. So I don't believe the Morokus have this half cock notch, but I could be wrong about that. So again, we'll just set that aside. Now the next thing to come out is going to be the lower tang. And you can take this is actually a spring right here. It's kind of acts like a leaf spring, but this is the carrier stop spring right here. You can take it out if you want. I've decided that I'm just going to leave it in, and I've got it tightened down a little bit to make sure that it doesn't slide around, because I've seen some videos where it just kind of flops back and forth here. You always want to make sure that this carrier stop spring is to the right side of the receiver. If If it's not, it's going to block up the works here. You're not going to be able to get stuff out. You're not going to be able to get stuff back in. So I've got it tightened down. I've got a little bit of blue thread lock on this screw right here. If you want to take it out and clean it, that's fine. Just make sure when you're putting everything back together again that this spring is up toward the right side of the receiver. Okay, so here we can slide this. Oh yeah, I got to take the tang out. So I'm going to slide the assembly forward here a little bit and flip this thing up. And again, I'm going to use a brass punch on the tang because I'm going to be hitting it right here on this edge, right back there, right in front of the trigger. So, and it's not going to take much. Again, if this is your first few times taking it out, you're probably going to have to put some effort into it. Since I've taken this thing apart so many times, it really doesn't take that much effort anymore. I can tap it out. On the videos I saw, and you can see it backing out here. How it's kind of backed out from there. The videos that I watched with the guys who were taking apart the original Winchester 1886s, this tang just slid in and out with no effort. Okay, and so you can see the tang has come out. And a couple things I can point out to you here. This is the trigger. This is the trigger spring, and this is what provides tension for the trigger. Now there are there's some chatter out there on how to reduce trigger pull by kind of grinding the spring down a little bit. I've looked around for a company that would do a drop-in trigger spring with a lighter tension on it. Haven't found one yet. Doesn't mean that's not out there, but I have considered this. I would like to have a lower trigger pull on it because it is pretty heavy, but I'm pretty wary about trying to take the spring down. They're available out there. You can buy them, but I think it's like 20-30 bucks, so I really don't want to. But if you want to take it off, there's a screw to hold that in. So that's all we need off the rear, the lower tang. So the next thing we're going to do is take out, this is all assembly, all assembled together, the breech bolt, the finger lever, and the carrier. To get this out, we're going to slide the breech bolt back. And I always have a tough time keeping everything centered. So this breech bolt is, and finger lever attached by this one single pin right there. And I've taken this apart enough times now that I can just push this out. Again, if it's your first few times, you probably have to tap it out with a mallet. So there's the pin, the breech bolt pin, and so just set that aside. Don't let it wander off. Now that I've got that out, I can take everything out. Now, before I do this, I want to caution you on a couple things. One is this breech bolt there's three main components to this breech bolt that you're going to be able to take apart. There's the breech bolt body. There is the firing pin is in there, and then there's the extractor pin assembly. And if you do like I did the first time, I took the breech bolt out and I just kind of, willy-nilly with the breech bolt, and the firing pin went off to the left and the extractor pin assembly went off to the right, and it took a little while to find the spring. So don't do that. When you take this breech bolt out, just keep it level with the table, just like this. And you can see, and you can hold on either end of this, and it'll hold those two pins in, the firing pin and the breech bolt, or the extractor assembly. So when you do want to take the firing pin out, just dump it out. It's a single firing pin. It's pretty good size. So if you drop it, you'll hear it probably. And then it's probably not going to get damaged. Now, as I understand it, on different production or different manufacturers of this rifle may have put in a multi-section or a multi-part firing pin. That's not the case here, and I'm pretty glad about that because I just want to deal with this one. Okay, and then on the front of the breech bolt, you see this is the firing, or I'm sorry, the extractor pin assembly. This is the front of it, the face of it. And this hole obviously is where the firing pin goes in. To get this out, you're going to want to pay attention to a couple things. There is the extractor pin itself, which I'm pointing to right here. Let me see if I can point a little bit. That's the end of it. There is a collar here. This is a collar that holds the spring in, and this collar is what the finger lever cams on when you operate the rifle. It's very important that you not lose this collar or the spring. If you lose either one of them, you're cooked. You're gonna have to go buy another one. But to get the extractor pin and spring out, they both come out through the front. The spring may actually drop back into the back. That's fine too. Either way is fine. Like right here, it's just falling back to the back. So here's your extractor pin. And then here's the collar and spring. And you can see how they're kind of low, or kind of small, I mean. So don't let them dance away from you. Just set those off to the side. And then here is the breech bolt body. And then I'm never going to do it, but here's another pin right here that pulls the round back out from the breech. Okay, so we're going to set that aside. Now, the next thing to do is we're going to take out the finger lever and carrier assembly. And this will just slide out now. Now, here's some things you need to pay attention to. This is how these two pieces are assembled. There's actually three pieces here. There is the finger lever, there's the carrier assembly, and then there's the carrier hook right here. And so I'm going to take this apart, and it'll just fall apart on you, I promise. And then I'll take the carrier hook out. So this is the hook. Okay, and that's as far as I'm going to tear or disassemble the rifle. You can remove the cartridge guide here if you like. This is the screw to get that out. You can also remove, if you can see inside of here, this is the cartridge stop on the left side of the receiver. I have found no reason, and here's the screw for that as well. I found no reason to take either one of those out. I disassembled the cartridge guide the first couple times, but in reality, to clean behind it, all you have to do is just push it down and clean up behind there, and then you can clean this portion and push it back up. The cartridge stop is pretty well, affixed to the left side of the receiver. I seriously doubt it's going to get very dirty. If it does, you can take it apart every now and again, but in reality, I have never taken this out. And so I check the tension on the screw every now and again just to make sure it's snug. But as far as the cartridge guide goes, along with the carrier stop spring, I snugged it up, and I put a little bit of blue thread lock on this screw so that it won't back out on me and I don't really have to worry about it. Okay, so that's as far as we're going to get with the receiver. So now we're going to put it all back together, and it just goes back together, like the original Winchester instructions say. It just goes back together the way you took it apart, but there is a trick to it. It doesn't really tell you how to get everything back together again, and this took me a while to figure this out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put back together the finger lever and carrier assembly. To do that, the first thing we need to do here is, and I'm going to move this out of the way so you can get a more clear shot. Again, this is the carrier hook, and this goes inside here, and it will attach there. I mean, it's just attached by by being together in such close proximity. That's the only thing keeping this thing together, is the narrowness of the receiver. So to get this back together again, we are going to take, this is the hook right here, and we're going to take that, and we're just going to point this hook forward. Okay, and this is the front of the carrier, this is the back, and then this is the top of the carrier, and you can see where it kind of has that shell guide. So we're going to take this hook and we're going to point it forward. We're going to put it inside of the carrier, and then we're going to twist it back. to where the hook is pointing back to the right. Okay, and if you're not careful, it'll just come right back out. There's nothing holding it in here. It'll just fall out. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to rotate it up and through like that. And so it'll still come out, but it's a little bit more secure in there right now. And the reason we do that is it's got a second hook right here, if you can see that. And that's going to hook into the finger lever via this hole. So to get this together, we're going to take our finger lever and we're going to set it down. We're going to take the carrier and we're going to set it down to where it's kind of like in an X. But you can see how the finger lever is going to sit right inside of here. So we're going to take these two, put them together like that, keeping the hook on top or on the right side of the finger lever, and we're just going to work it until that hook slides into that hole, just like that. And so you can kind of see how this works. As you pull that finger lever down, you can see how this operates. Okay? Now, this is the finger lever cam, this section right here, and this is what's going to go up inside of the breech bolt. So we've got those two together, or those pieces together. We're just going to set that off to the side. Now we're going to put the breech bolt back together. To do this, this is a little tricky too, because there were no written instructions that I could find for this, and I had to figure it out myself. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the extractor pin assembly back in. To do that, remember I said that the extractor pin and the spring come out through the front and they go back in through the front. And you can see how there's a cutout here. There's only one way. Browning was a genius, and he designed everything so that there's only one way it can go back together. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this collar and we're going to drop it back into the bottom side of the breech bolt assembly, and just drop it in there. You don't need to get it in any certain position right now. Then we're going to take the extractor pin and we're going to slide it in the correct way, and you can see there's a notch cut out right here. So that notch is going to face up when you put it in. When I say up, I mean to the top of the breech bolt. I'm going to face up and we're going to slide it in, and we're just going to hold it in just right there for now. And as you're doing that, you're going to try to fish, and you may need a tool, you may need a pick to help you. You're just going to fish the collar up onto the end of this breech or this extractor pin. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here, but I'm just getting this extractor or this collar on here, and it takes a little bit of work. Oh, lost it. That's okay. There. Now, I've got the collar onto the extractor pin, but I need to get it on the other side of this section of the breech bolt right here, and there's a little lip that it needs to go under. So I'm going to push the extractor pin in a little bit, or actually out a little bit, and try to fish this collar onto the other side of that lip. There we go. Okay. So you can see I'm kind of getting it on there. I'll pull that back out, and now I'm good. Now I'm good to go. As long as the collar is between the spring and this little lip right here, you're good to go. So that's in. But you're going to want to be careful and not tip this thing up, because it'll come out. So just set it back down. Now the firing pin's going to go in. You can see the beveled edge on the lower part of the firing pin. That's going to go in. It's just going to match. It's just going to match the bevel on the end of the breech bolt assembly. Again, if you put it in upside down, it's not going to go in all the way, because it wasn't designed to go in all the way. So if you flip it back over again, it'll go in, and you want to hold both ends in here until you set it down, or the parts will come flying out, and you can see the firing pin sticking out there. Okay, and we're going to set that down. We're going to set it like that, because now we're going to start working on putting all this back together again. So the first thing that's going to go back into the receiver is going to be the breech bolt assembly, but it's not going to go all the way in. And when you do it again, hold on to these pieces, and you're just going to want to hold on. You're just going to slide it in just a little ways, and I push it in a little bit further past this pinhole so that it'll stay. The next thing that's going to go in here is this carrier and finger lever assembly. And how you're going to get this in is make sure that this cartridge or this carrier stop spring is up to the right side of the receiver, and then you're going to slide this in. This cam is going to go inside the bottom of the breech bolt, and then you're going to want to make sure that the carrier goes inside of the receiver, and you may have to jiggle it around a little bit to get it in. It may come apart on you when you do this, so you may have to pull everything back out again. Okay, I got it in. Don't have to push it in all the way, but I'm going to pull this breech bolt back out again enough to be able to see where the cam goes into the breech bolt body. And while I'm doing this, I'm holding in the extractor pin assembly, and I'm holding in the firing pin. And I'm not putting a ton of pressure on it, I'm just holding them in. If you put a bunch of pressure on it, this thing is not going to go together. You just want to make sure everything stays in the breech bolt. So as I'm holding that in, I'm going to push this cam inside here, and I'm going to line the holes up as best I can. Now I've got everything lined up, and you remember I said that there's a notch inside the extractor pin. You want to make sure that notch is in line with this hole, because otherwise you're not going to be able to get the pin back in. So it's just going to take some fishing around. Sometimes it'll go in right away. Sometimes you'll have to work with it. There we go. See, and then the retention pin is in there, and just make sure it's flush on both sides, so it's not interfering with the operation of the bolt. So now everything's good. It's not going to come back out again. So now I'm going to slide this all kind of forward. I'm going to make sure that the carrier is down so I can get this all the way in. Or actually, yeah. I just want to make sure that it's gonna operate. And this always takes a little bit of work for me. There is a definite right way to do this, and I haven't figured that part out yet. But just work with it. It'll end up going in. This cartridge guide, you want to make sure that it's up to the right side of the receiver as well. There. So what I did was I ended up pushing that carrier forward, and now the bolt will go home. So we're good there. All right, the next thing that's going to go in is the hammer, and it's going to go in from the underside of the upper tang. And make sure, you know, when you're handling these parts or setting them on the table, don't throw anything on this. Don't throw anything on this foot or stirrup, whatever it's called, because it could break. And if it breaks, you'll have to buy another one. And I mean, you can put it in yourself, but might as well not break it. So we're just going to slide it in. Doesn't have to be in any sort of specific position. Just want to make sure that this lip is below the upper tang, and you can. The position of the stirrup is not super important right now. Okay, so that's in. So the next thing that's going to go in is the tang, and the tang is going to go in. When you put this tang in, you can see that the tang has two blocks right here. So these blocks are what's going to contact the receiver, the internal sides of the receiver, and then the hammer is going to go right in between. Not only the hammer, but the carrier. The carrier has one. Let me back this out again. The carrier has one hole. Let's see if I can see it. If we can see it. See if I can now get it back out again. There it is. Okay. So that you can see the carrier has one hole that's going to line up with the receiver, the tang, the hammer. So we're going to put this all back in again. Just got to get it all lined up. There we go. Okay. So you're going to want to get the carrier lined up as much as possible inside there, and then don't worry about it too much at the moment because we got to get the tang in first. We're going to put the hammer in, get it in there, and now the tang is going to go in. To get this tang in, there's ledges here on the receiver that it's going to slide into. Again, if it's new, I'm going to put a little bit of oil. I still need to clean this thing. I just got back from the range, but just for the purposes of instruction, I'll put some oil to help lube the tang up a little bit, so it'll hopefully slide in a little easier. Okay, and you just get this thing lined up. Okay, so I've got it started, so I'm just going to take, again, my brass mallet, the brass end of my mallet, and I'm going to tap the back side of the tang. And before I do this, actually, I need to back this out a little bit. I need to mention, before I put the tang in, I'm going to pull this trigger back. And the reason why is, you can see the top end of this trigger, it needs to go under the hammer strut right here on the bottom side of this hammer. It needs to slide underneath of it. So just make sure you've got tension back on the trigger while you're sliding this in. And then you're going to want to maintain backward pressure on the hammer while you're tapping it in, because that, if you let go now, it's going to, that lip on the top of this trigger is going to pop up on the back side of this hammer strut, and you're going to have to pull back out and do it all over again. So just maintain pressure on the back on the hammer, and you will feel it click when you've got it sufficiently under on the other side of that hammer strut, and you can let go of pressure on that trigger. And again, if this is your first couple times doing this, taking this thing apart and putting it back together, you may have to really put some elbow grease into it to get the tang in. And you just want to kind of line it up. I think I've got it pretty much lined up at the moment. Yep, I think so. Okay. So I know that I'm good because this trigger is not going all the way forward when I release pressure on it, which means that lip is on the bottom side of that hammer strut, and I'm good to go. Okay. So now comes the fun one. Now is the main screw, main pin, main receiver pin, that is. And again, this is going to come up from the left side to the right side. So this is kind of a joy to put back together again. I'm going to flip this thing over, put my block there. And the trick to this is, I'm just going to slide this in as far as I can. And what it's going to do is, if I've got everything lined up the most I possibly can, it's going to slide all the way to the hammer strap, which it just did. So I got through the left side of the receiver, I got through the left side of the tang block, and it's hitting the hammer strut. So that's good. And that means I got it lined up good enough. So now I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to hold the screw in place. I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to rest the receiver on top of that screw. And hopefully I'll be able to let gravity do the rest of the work. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a punch, and I'm going to place it inside here, and I'm going to try to push up on the hammer strut, push that hammer, because you're not going to be able to see it, but the part that's occluding that pin from coming all the way through is the top end of the hole on that hammer strut. So I'm just going to try to push it up, and hopefully gravity will do its job, and you'll hear it and you'll feel it when it comes through. And you're just going to have to fish it around a little bit. There. Actually, I think, let me try. It's a different story every time I do this. Yep. It's sitting on the hammer. It's not the tang block is not impeding it. So it's sitting on the hammer, and then also the back side of that carrier block is going to be the next thing to impede its progress. So I'm just going to push down on it, and usually it just kind of falls down when it gets lined up. Maybe. Yeah, it's looking pretty good, but it's just not falling. And just kind of fish it around a little bit. It'll come in eventually. Let's see here. Yep, I was in there. I was started anyway. We'll try it again. Come on now. And I'm putting a little bit of downward pressure on the tang. There, just like that. See, so the downward pressure, gravity, it got through the side of the tang block, or I'm sorry, it got through the hammer strut. So now the only thing that is resting on is the back end. That carrier block is on the back end of the carrier. So hopefully it'll be the same thing. This one I'm just gonna have to push up on a little bit, hopefully. Just get it lined up and let it punch through. It's looking okay. Maybe if I go this way. Almost. Yep, okay, it's through. Well, no, it's not quite through yet. It may be through enough. Now, what I'm gonna do at this point is I'm just gonna try tapping it in with my mallet and see what happens. Yep, it's going in. Okay, now that's down all the way to the threads on the right side. So I'm just gonna finish it off and screw it in. And it's a little tight, but and this is where it's important to keep downward pressure on this screw so you don't booger up the head like I've done. Just going slow, because I definitely don't want to cross thread it either, and if I feel like I'm cross threading it, I'll stop and back it out again. There. That kind of brings me to a good point. Is I contacted Chiappa, or actually I contacted Taylor Firearms, which is the importer, and asked for torque specs on the screws, and there are no torque settings. No, all they told me was just make sure it's snugged up. On this screw, that's going to be perfectly fine because there's so much tension on it anyway from all the internal parts. It's not going to back out. Everything else I've put on, except for this cartridge block screw, which I have never taken out. Everything else that I've touched, I've put a little bit of that blue thread lock on there, and that will prevent it from backing out. Okay, now if we want to test this and make sure that we got everything put back together again, we can. We don't have the hammer spring in yet, but that's okay. We don't really need it at this point, just to make sure everything's going back in correctly. Even without the blocks, we can do this. All we're wanting to make sure is this going to hold the hammer back, and then will the hammer get released when we pull the trigger, and will it go all the way home? And the answer to all that is yes, so we're good to go. So now we're going to put the blocks back in. The left block is going to go in first, just because it's the easiest. And again, there's no notch on the left block. The ridge is the inside of the block, and the hole obviously goes at the bottom. So we're going to slide. I'm going to open this up a little bit. We're going to slide the left block in. We're just going to get it basically lined up with the hole on the finger lever right there. Hold it in place, flip it over, set it back down, and now the right block's going to go in. Now the right block again has this notch right here, which is where the cartridge guide goes into. And again, we're just going to push this cartridge guide down a little bit so we can get it started. Oh, and I'm sorry, before I do this, you want to put pretty liberal amount of oil on both of these blocks because they're rubbing up against the finger lever and the inside of the receiver. So make sure that these have a fairly good amount of oil on them. So then we're going to slide this in, and we're going to make sure that the end of this cartridge guide makes it into this slot, or the cutout. And we'll push this up. We'll continue to push this up to where it fishes through to the top of the receiver. I'm not sure exactly what's causing that to catch up. Huh. It's a new one. Oh, maybe it's, well, no, there it is. There's the channel right there. Okay. So now I'm in the channel. Okay. There's a channel on the top of the breech bolt that I wasn't making it into. Okay, so now I'm going to pull this back down again. The cartridge guide is inside the slot. I may have to pull this back out a bit. There. And then again, I'm just going to line this up. This hole on the finger lever is pretty healthy, so you don't have to get it. You don't have to get everything totally lined up. Just get enough to where you can get the bushing and pin back in. So again, the bushing is going to come in from the left side. Okay. And then the pin is going to go in from the right side. So you've got the flat part, you've got the pin, the split pin portion is going to end up on the left side, facing out from the left side. To get this in, what I found is that's where these vice grips come in handy. This pin is not worn in enough to where I can just tap it in without any help. So I've been having to use vice grips. Yeah, it kind of mars the finish on this, but again, nobody's going to see the finish on the side. And all I'm wanting to make sure is I'm going to have enough, I'm going to be able to put enough tension on it to get this thing totally closed. And I want to make sure I have enough room here to when I set it down on top of here, it's going to be able to work in to the bushing. Yeah, it's still not quite enough. I'm going to tighten it down a little bit. Perfect. That'll be good enough, I think. So I'm just going to set it on here. I've got the bushing blocked off by the block. I'm going to take my mallet and I'm just going to try to get it started. I think it started there. Yep, it started. So I can move this thing around. The bushing is in there, so it's not going to get out of alignment. So I'm just going to put it on the block to where the pin sticks all the way out, and I'll tap it all the way in. And what you're going to want to make sure of when you finish this pin up is that the pin is split back out into that channel. If it's still pinched together, it's not in there far enough. You need to get in with a punch probably and push it, keep working on it until it's all the way out. Okay, so now the last thing to do as far as the internal components go is going to be the hammer spring. So again, I'm going to want to release all the tension on the hammer, push it all the way forward. And then from the left side, I'm going to put this this main spring in, and I'm going to fish that little stirrup out and get it connected. So sometimes it doesn't want to play nice, but it's really not hard. Oops. Okay. I'm just gonna get the stirrup and the foot together. Okay, now I've got it caught. So to start this out, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get it pretty close, and then I'm just gonna push down what would be down on this leaf spring. It's not gonna hurt the spring because it's under a lot of pressure anyway. So I'm just gonna push it down and get that bevel into the notch. Get it started, and then I'll finish it out. I can either tap it in, or I can just push it in, but just want to make sure it's flush with this block right here. Okay, so there's that. And for me, what I'd like to do is I like to put the stock on first, and then I'll put the remaining screws in, but I want to make sure that this is going to be operational. So that part's operational. That's why I leave the side gate off, so I can make sure that the cartridge guide is still in that notch, and that by operating the finger lever, it's going to push that cartridge guide back up. And then I'm going to release tension on the hammer. I'm not going to let it slam home because there's no cartridge or nothing in there, and I don't think it would probably really hurt this thing. If you sat there and did it like 1,000 times on a dry fire, and it might end up wearing the parts out a little faster, but once or twice probably ain't going to hurt it, but I'm not going to chance it. And then I want to make sure that I have the half-cock safety working. Okay, everything's lined up, so that's good. Let that go home and grab my stock. Again, shoulder goes up. And you might have to use a rubber mallet the first few times. Now I've just got it to where I can push it together. So I'm going to put the wood screw in first on the bottom. And again, I haven't put that hammer spring screw back in yet, because that's really the last thing that I want to put in, because that's just how I've gotten used to doing it, and B, I want to make sure that that's not going to scrape up against that hammer spring in any way. Okay, and again, just snug these up. There's no torque setting. Okay, flip it over, and I'll put I have loose brass hanging around on my bench. I'm going to put the upper rear tang screw in. And again, make sure you have good downward pressure when you get to the end of this so you don't mar up the screw. Snug that. Okay. Again, I'll flip it back over again. I'm going to put the hammer spring screw in now. And the amount of tension I put on the hammer spring, it's just by feel. I mean, I get it to where the screw wants to stop, and then I turn it maybe another eighth of a turn, quarter of a turn, to put enough tension on the screw or on the spring. I've never had a light strike on any of my primers, so I'm assuming I'm doing it correctly. So there, that's about how much I put on it. And the last thing I'm going to put on is the side gate cover. The only thing that you need to pay attention to on the side gate cover is the action has to be closed when you go to put this on. If it's not closed, the cartridge guide is going to be in the way. You're not going to be able to get the side gate cover on. If you have to put any pressure down on this at all, you've got something that's not lined up correctly. So to put this in correctly, there's a bevel on the very forward edge where the gate goes in. You're going to put that bevel inside the receiver slightly and just drop that on there and screw it in. And again, don't be me, put plenty of downward pressure on the screw so you don't strip out the slot. And then to test to make sure that your side gate cover is on correctly, just push it in. And that's it. That's how to disassemble and reassemble an original Browning 1886, Browning Winchester 1886, or the Chiappa clone. If you have any questions or comments, drop them in the comments here. I appreciate you watching the video. If you thought it was helpful, hit the like button. Thanks.